Right, thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Tunnelling. Today's guest is Brian Marshall, Superintendent for John Holland Tunnelling. How are you, mate?
Good. Yourself?
Yeah, good, going all right. Hey, thank you for coming on. I know that time's always pretty full on for you, travelling wise and everything like that, but I really appreciate your time and effort to come along today. Thank you. And being part of this journey. You know, it's something that I wanted to get out there, especially having a passion for tunnelling. All right, so thank you very much. But let's talk tunnelling. So you started on your first construction job 30 years ago. Where was that at?
Oh, the first job I started was in New Zealand. It's kind of by accident. I got offered a part-time job on a construction site in New Zealand on the Clyde Dam. It was a drilling and grouting job. I was 19 years old at the time. Yeah, pretty interesting.
So you're from Clyde?
No, I grew up in Twizel.
Oh, yeah.
And all my mates after school went to the Clyde Dam, working on the Clyde Dam. My dad wouldn't let me do that. I had to get an apprenticeship. I did the apprenticeship first, and then this opportunity arose for me to go and work on the Clyde Dam and make some big money, as it was in those days.
Tell us a little bit about that job. What was involved there?
Oh, look, this guy rang me up and offered me a job, do some grouting. Didn't really know what grouting was, thought it was sticking tiles to the wall or something like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went and saw him and he explained what it was. We were going to drill holes in the ground and pump cement in there, and that was going to stop water when they raised the dam level from forcing up into the mountain, into this pocket of water that was in the mountain, and stop the top of this mountain sliding off and creating a tidal wave, which, you know, could wreak havoc on the Clyde Dam and burst it. So initially it was for 2.5 months. It was just as a trial. And the company that was doing it was in for the whole job. And anyway, they got the trial, they won the job, and we ended up being there for nearly 2 years.
Wow. So that Clyde Dam project you were talking about, so that was damming the Clutha River, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the early stage was damming the Clutha River, which was the Clyde Dam itself. And then what happened was the government worked out afterwards that they'd started to build this road down from Cromwell down to Clyde, and the ground through there, when they started digging parts of the roadway, wasn't as stable as what they thought it was. So they then had to do all these tunnels into the mountain to drain water out of the mountain. So when the dam came up, the extra water that was in the rock didn't force into the ground. So in different locations we did grout curtains, and then after I finished with Battersea Solitage, which was the first company I worked for there, I went into the tunnels with Fletcher Trevi, and we drilled the deep drainage holes into the mountain to release the water. So some of the holes were like 450 metres long. You know, it was an interesting job.
What diameter are we talking there?
So we'd start off with a 18-inch hole first, and you'd slowly reduce down, so until the sleeve itself for the drainage was only about 100 mil.
Yeah.
But you had to start at the large diameter, and you'd drill that as far as you could. You'd put casing in there, and then you'd put a smaller diameter. So then you go to 15-inch, and then you drill as far as you can with 15, and then go down to 10, and so on to get the depth that you needed to do.
And quite a bit of water coming out of those mountains?
Oh, there was, and some of the holes there was, yeah. Some of them, you know, we spent months and months drilling these holes and didn't really see any water at all. I suppose they weren't expecting the water until the dam came up. So in a lot of cases we drilled holes and thought, oh yeah, that seemed like a waste of time. But it wouldn't be until they actually raised the water level that these drainage holes had come into effect.
Right. So you spent 2.5 years there?
Yeah, it was about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Down there, yeah.
Yeah, where'd you head to after that?
I went down, after that, the company that I first worked for there, Bashi Solitage, they're a French company and they had an office in the UK. All my mates had gone to the UK by that stage, travelling. I always seem to be a little bit behind everyone else. So I headed off over there because they offered me a job over there. So I went to the UK for just under 7 years after that.
Yeah.
And,
Would you work anywhere? What were you doing? It was just an overseas trip, or?
To start with, I didn't think I'd last there very long.
Yeah.
Bought a return ticket, which was a waste of money because I never ended up using the ticket.
Yeah.
I thought it'd maybe last 6 months or something like that. Got there, and again, most of my mates were travelling Europe by this stage. I got a job with Bashi again, and was lucky enough to get onto the Jubilee Line, which at the time was the biggest infrastructure project in the world. It was about £3.9 billion, and at the exchange rate of New Zealand to English pound in those days was $3.50 to the pound. So it was nearly 13-14 billion New Zealand dollars in 1990, which was a massive amount of money. And I worked on 4 different stages of that project over the next sort of 7 years.
Doing similar work to what you've done in Clyde, or was it a variation of work?
It was a completely different type of tunnelling and work as far as that was concerned. New Zealand was hard rock. It was drill and blast and that style of tunnelling, steel sets, timbering up, and there we were trying to take water out of the ground. The UK, and especially in London, it's called London blue clay, so it's a really stiff clay. They use jackhammers. A lot of the tunnels, or the smaller tunnels, are done by hand. So you jackhammer out the material and then you try and shovel it up. It's quite difficult. I've had to go at it a couple of times. And then just above that clay, which is normally where the tunnels are, they have what's called the Thames water-bearing gravel. So it's this 5 metre layer of just gravel that's full of water. So you don't want to punch it out because it can affect the clay quite badly. But the 3 sections that I worked on over there, 2 of them were station boxes, big cuts, in preparation for the TBMs to go in their launch. So we did all the piling works, sea camp piles and then anchors, excavate it down, big struts, and then TBM to go in. And then at Waterloo, it was an underground cabin and station. So it was called Natum tunnelling, which is very slow progression, soft ground tunnelling, a lot of canopy tubes, and we did a lot of compensation grouting, which is what I looked after on that job. And for the compensation grouting, you'd be pumping the ground up in front of the TBMs before they came. So because the ground was so soft and it was going to move, you had these tubes that were drilled out underneath the buildings, like the House of Parliament, Big Ben, and you'd pump the building up by 5 to 10 mil before the TBM got there. And then as the TBM went through, you'd see the ground relax. And then 10 metres behind the TBM, 8 to 10 metres behind the TBM, once the ground had relaxed, then we'd pump the ground back up again to try and keep, some of those buildings are 300-400 years old.
Yeah.
Not built like what they are nowadays.
No. So after London, you spent 7 years there, and then you headed back where? Where'd you end up?
I went back to New Zealand actually, initially, thinking that New Zealand was the place to be. The what was it called, Manapori tunnel was going to happen. Had a mate of mine, he came from Cromwell, and we grew up together, and we'd been in the UK together and he'd worked on a couple of jobs with me over there. Right or wrong, he was going down to Manapori, so we both put our CVs in down there, and then I got offered a job in Australia. He got offered a job at Manapori, and suppose we parted ways. And I went to Australia, went to Melbourne for CityLink Tunnel down there. For the same company I worked for in the UK and in New Zealand, a company called Bashi. Again, it was sort of in the foundation industry. A 2 kilometre long slurry wall down there for the entrance of the tunnel. And I've been in Australia ever since.
Worked on, and then you ended up in Sydney. That's sort of
So
where
I
you ended up.
did the job in Melbourne, then came to Sydney and was involved in a couple of jobs in Sydney. The first job was the Eastern Distributor.
Oh yeah.
I did the entrances for the Eastern Distributor. I think we did nearly 10 kilometres worth of diaphragm wall on that job.
Yeah.
Over at the King's Cross end. And also most of them were up on South Dowling Street, Moore Park end.
Okay.
I got a little bit of a taste for tunnelling in Sydney Sandstone. I remember meeting a young fella with a big long beard and, like this Harley. Anyway, I was out on the surface looking after it there and he was in looking after the road headers, and my mate Cam actually came over for a holiday and I arranged for us to go into the tunnel and went down and had a look on the road header and stuff like that. I suppose that was the first time I ever saw, Sydney Sandstone being
Yeah, so that was the Eastern Distributor.
That was Eastern Distributor.
Wow, okay then. And that was almost like a box cut tunnel, wasn't it? And then a false floor, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it was 26 metres high.
Yeah.
It was a massive tunnel. I think it was one of the biggest
Yeah.
cuts at the time around the world, I think.
Okay, and then you got your taste for tunneling.
Yeah. I suppose I saw it and, with some of the other work that was coming up, that's when I was starting to talk about the M5 and other things like that. You could see that there was, the industry was growing, and I'd spent my life, I suppose, to that point. I'd go around and I'd do all the setup stuff before the tunnel boys come in and do the job. So it was after that I did a little job at Algas gas cabins at the time, and we did some drilling and grouting in there to stop water. And then after that, the M5 came up and I decided, right, I'm going to go and do all of the D-walls and all the setup first, and then get a job in the tunnel construction after that. And that was the first time I actually worked on the physical construction of the tunnel itself.
Brilliant. So when you talk about that Eastern Distributor, because the guys that I met at the Cross City Tunnel had come from there, and they talked about their job quite vividly, and then a lot of them did go to that M5 East and talked about, and they obviously filled me in on that. What's your impression of that M5 East? What was your take on that? Being you're talking, when you say tunnel construction, we're talking excavation, aren't we?
Yeah. So I suppose for the M5 East, I worked on the soft ground part of the tunnel. It was the first time they'd done a Natum tunnel in Australia, and I've been involved with Natum tunnelling in the UK because it's all soft ground, it's all clay, it's all compensation grouting, canopy tubes, stabilisation.
What's that? Natum?
Natum,
That's the strata, is it? Is that what you're talking about?
Natum's, it's abbreviation for the New Austrian Tunnelling Method.
Oh, okay, so it's a method of
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
So it's a method of tunnelling. It's a very slow way of tunnelling. For example, on the M5, excavation depth itself was 750 mil. There was 3 separate benches. Each bench had a 3 metre progression before you could take the next stage out of the bench. So the top heading was only sort of like 2.5 metres high. It was probably physically the most challenging job that I've ever done. Yeah. I had some great guys on that job, old school drillers, young guys. It's where I really learned how to drive an excavator, have a planer, shotcrete rig. It was all hand spraying in a lot of cases. But yeah, really physically, it was 12 hours a day. It's probably the skinniest I've ever been. Used to eat like a chicken for lunch.
Yeah.
But the heat and everything, yeah, it was a hard job, that one.
Sitting in on that induction, because we talked earlier, and I remember you saying even back at the Clyde Dam, you had a bit of a low peak down the hole, and you could tell it was a different environment, you know. But sitting in, say, the induction for that M5 East job, and knowing full well that you're on the excavation crew, you know, years later from your first look at tunnelling hard rock back in New Zealand, what was your impression when you first rocked up to M5 East to know that you were going to be working on a job like this in excavation?
Oh, for me, it was pretty exciting, eh? It was a different style of tunnel of what I'd seen before, you know, in New Zealand and the drill and blast, and what I'd seen in the UK. You know, I suppose it's come a long way since when I first started on the Clyde Dam. We were standing there in stubbies in the singlet, you know, no safety glasses, no dust mask, no, had a hard hat, but that was about it. But yeah, it was a challenging job. I suppose one of the interesting parts for me was the fact that we actually got stopped because the Sydney Olympics were on at that time as well. And because we were a soft ground tunnel, and there was only, I think it was only 2.5 metres worth of cover between us and the live rail into Sydney. And the last thing the government wanted was something to go wrong.
During that time.
When the world's cameras were in town. We actually got moved up to Bexley, and that's when I first was involved with roadheaders, and really saw what tunnelling in Australia was about, I suppose, or in Sydney Sandstone.
So you've talked about what it was like for you when you were in Clyde, and you talk about what you wore and things like that, and 30 years on, what do you think has changed over that 30 years compared to when you first rocked up to Clyde?
Oh, I suppose I've seen a lot of changes. Definitely in obviously the safety side of things. Again, like I said, thinking back to one of the first jobs I had was just throwing bags of cement into a cement mixer. I'd have a cigarette hanging out in my mouth. No real PPE, had a pair of rubber gloves. But nowadays, the last thing I'd want to do is see one of the guys throwing bags of cement around without a dust mask on, smoking a cigarette at the same time. Technology's changed as well, definitely improved the industry with, the guidance systems we've got now. Also, even just through, we do a lot of our safety audits and stuff like that. It's all on an iPad now. We've got a new app at work actually, it's called Take a Knee, which is, it's like a Take 5. The boys can put it on their phone, and during the day they're encouraged to use it. And, in the old days you'd write something on a piece of paper, throw it in the book, and it might be 3 days later before someone come got those pieces of paper, had to read through them, and then maybe another 3 days later they gave them to you and went, oh, you should have a look at this. It's a week later. Now we get live feedback on how things are going, how they're not going, where maybe we can improve things. So, I suppose everything, like our lives in general, is sped up. And the amount of information that's out there for us to do our job now, from the workforce up to staff to management, has just sped up immensely. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. So the industry's changed immensely.
You talked about the guidance system, and this is interesting because I remember learning how to operate a road header without the guidance. And you only know what you know. So getting taught something like that and learning to cut what I call by eye, having your surveyor come down and draw his line up and tell us that's the profile and away we go, and until we sort of feel we're going a bit offline, we might pull up, and reassess where we're going. To go into another project where it was introduced and having to adapt to that. I know for me personally, trusting it. Sitting there and looking at a screen and feeling the machine, or knowing how to feel the machine and being involved in that side of it, to looking at a screen. What's your take on that? What did you think about it?
It's an interesting question actually, because we just brought a little 125 in to do a pedestrian tunnel, and it's a complete opposite of what you just said. All the boys that have been cutting for me for the last 18 months, all I've known is the guidance system.
Yes.
Right, so the boys are cutting this escalator tunnel, so it's actually diving down at a 26-degree angle, but we're going straight in at the moment, so that the roof's coming down like this. So the guidance up and down, up and down, up and down, they can't work it out.
Okay.
And I went in there and I said, why don't you just paint a grade line on the wall, which is what we used to do.
Yes.
And then use your eye, because I've got a remote, cut to that, and then, you've already done a cut, you can see what you can cut. He's like, yeah, but I can't see the screen. So mate, you don't need the screen, you can actually see how you need to cut. So it is funny in some respects, because the guys now have got so used to the guidance system and rely on it so much that they can't do it in some respects. If it goes down, power goes down, and the guys have to stop. They've lost that ability to do what you were talking about before, and cut it by eye, do it the way that you used to be able to do it.
But then we turned it on itself, where it's saved us safety-wise, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
I know that you're passionate about that, in the fact that the guidance, especially for us bolting and doing a lot of things too.
Oh look, the guidance for me is the key. I helped develop the guidance system for drilling rigs with B&T, and I was in a position when we were at Eastlink, or an opportunity arose when I did a safety course, leadership safety course, where they said at the course, at the end of this 1 week training course, we want you to present what you could do to help the industry make this job a better job. And I saw an opportunity there to get a guidance system up and running, and we were lucky enough on that job to get it going, and to stop guys having to need to go out with a paint stick and a piece of conduit and mark up where you got to put the bolts in, and get guys to rely on and get used to using a computer that says this is the right place to do it. And I think it's been taken up now. I remember the next job after that sort of dropped off a little bit, but it's standard practice now. Everyone's got used to it. There's a lot of young guys that come through that are used to iPads and all the rest of it. So
it's quite interesting talking about that and what we used to do, and then this generation looking at us like, really? Is that how you did it? So sort of shows our age a little bit, but I like what you said about cutting, and nowadays where you won't be able to get the guidance in there, but having to rely on your experience with cutting by eye. That's brilliant. Let's talk about the proudest moment or achievement that you've been involved in, Ryan. Like when you look back at the amount of work that you've done and what you've been involved in. For 30 years, it's a very long time, mate. So, what's the proudest achievement that you've been a part of, or what had?
it's a hard question, I suppose. I've worked on quite a few different jobs now, and when you look back at it, you think about it. It's hard to distinguish between different jobs. I definitely have to say, and I haven't finished it yet, but Sydney Metro's, it's edging up there is probably one of the jobs I'll be most proud of. It's pretty technical, but in our industry, it's about the people that you work with. So I'd definitely say it's the best team I've ever worked with, and it's the most cohesive team I've ever worked with, and it just makes the job easy. Even though it's a hard job, technically it's a hard job, logistically because of where it is in the middle of Martin Place, the stakeholders that are around here and just all that sort of stuff. Under the fact that we're tunnelling underneath a heritage listed bank, you're dealing with the client, you're dealing with Macquarie Bank, all of these different factors. It's probably one thing that I'll really look forward to is being able to take Jack there later. I took Jack there last school holidays actually, and he had a little bit of a glimpse. I drove him down into the tunnel because we weren't working on the Sunday, and he was just amazed. But one of the questions he asked me is, Dad, when the train's going, can we come back and ride it through this station and have a look at it? And that for me made me super proud.
Yeah. I know my kids think I've built every tunnel in Australia. Every time we go through one, Dad, did you build this tunnel? Oh, yes, son. For sure. Yeah. That's great. How about the funniest moment, mate? What's one of the funniest things you've seen in our industry or in our
funniest would probably be an event at Sydney Opera House. So we did a job at Sydney Opera House called the BAPS project. It was the pedestrian safety project. So we put a couple of tunnels underneath the Opera House itself. We built a loading dock under there and a couple of tunnels that went out underneath the Opera Theatre and the concert hall. And technically probably one of the hardest jobs I ever did. The Opera House it's open 365 days a year, it never closes. There's 600 staff members that work in there. And the strange thing about when I first went to the Opera House, there's 28 million people visit that place every year, which puts it in one of the highest visited monuments in the world, sort of thing. I think it works out around 22,000 people a day go in and out of that building, on average. And, we were there, we were tunnelling. It was about, the show must go on. And as tunnellers, we're used to being up front first and everything revolved around us. This job, it didn't. If they wanted us to stop because they had something going on in one of the theatres, we stopped. And I don't think many people on any tunnel job stop a rodeo because there's someone singing in the background.
Pavarotti wants to have a gig.
Absolutely. So I suppose we was probably halfway through that job, and there was a commercial manager that worked for the Opera House, and the only time that I'd ever seen her was in meetings that we used to have with them, and she used to wear these immaculate, I don't know whether they were Gucci suits but they were nice suits with glasses and her hair tied up and all the rest of it. She was very well spoken. And halfway through the job, we decided that we'd do some more tours, just because we wanted the people in the Opera House to understand what was going on. So I organised these tours where we used to take 6 people from the Opera House, and we set it up in a way that it was like a lottery for the people that was, because everyone was interested in what we were doing, and none of them saw. So it was like this lottery. They picked 6 staff members to come for a walk. So we finished the cabin by this stage, and she was on the first walk. She got her hard hat on and gumboots and high vis and long trousers and all the rest of it. And we walked down into the tunnel. And we walked around the corner and into the cabin. And the first word that came out of her mouth was F-U-C-K. Fucking Jesus. And I was just taken aback. I just couldn't believe what I just heard her say. And I said, is everything okay? She goes, I can't believe it. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I just can't believe what you have done. And I said, oh, I see that section over there. That's where your office used to be before we moved you out of there and you went up into that area out there. That's all gone now and this is that. She goes, you're fucking kidding. Yeah. And she walked around for the next 20 minutes. Just in awe, but swearing head off. Just amazed at what we'd done. And by the end of the walk, we got upstairs and she thanked us. And it was quite amazing in some respects. From that point on, we never got stopped again. Yeah. Because people in the building then understood what we were trying to do and how difficult, muddy, dark, smelly, all that stuff that's in the tunnel was. And yeah, it was quite funny.
Yeah. You talked about, hooking up with Cam and applying for that mandatory job, and then obviously you separate and you come over to Australia. If you could, I suppose, write something now with all what you've been through, what you know now, if you could write a few tips or some advice and send it back, 20, 30 years ago to Brian back then, what would some of the advice be there? What would you give yourself?
I definitely tell myself to stick to the rules, follow the procedures. But I suppose the key for me, and I didn't learn it till probably halfway through my career. I was always that one that, it was us and then there was management. Even though I was sort of management, I was shift boss for a long time, maybe a foreman for a long time. Never really went any further. But I suppose looking back now, I used to follow the rules. No problem there. But it's about selling yourself as well. It wasn't until I met this person once and he gave me a bit of advice on one job about the fact that we're all salesmen in our general lives, It's how you sell yourself to how well you'll do. And looking back, if I'd sold myself, I was good construction worker, I was a good supervisor, I was good at most of that stuff, you know what I mean? But I was never out there. I was never at front of the line saying, I'm good at this, I can do better. I was quite happy just being in the background. You look at all the photos, I was one in the back, which is a good thing in itself, but to achieve what you want to achieve, you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to sell yourself. You've got to believe in yourself. And once you start doing that, especially if you're leading people, mate, they'll believe it as well. And I think in some cases that's what makes a successful job is, having people be able to do that up front. And at the end of the day, a lot of us are just followers, like herd sheep. One starts going that way, we all just follow.
If you, obviously you've got a long way to, you still want to keep doing what you're doing and doing this for as long as possible, or what's your plans? Are you gonna obviously Jack's what? He's
It's 9 now. Oh look, I'd love for him to become a professional footballer and I can retire.
yeah.
He's still got a wee way to go.
Yeah.
Look, I love the industry.
Yeah.
Oh, I love, everything about it. I've been lucky. I've done jobs New Zealand, England, Australia, Singapore. I'd love to do some more jobs overseas again later on, I suppose.
Yeah.
I always wanted to work in Hong Kong.
What about the best? What's the best method that you've worked on? You've obviously done drill and blast. Have you worked on a TVM sort of?
I've never done TVM actually. I've spent a lot of time like in Singapore and in the UK. Spent a lot of time setting up TVMs, getting ready for TVMs, helping with the launch.
Yeah.
But I've never done a TVM. I've done most others.
Yeah.
Look, if the Western Harbour Tunnel came up, that really interests me.
Yeah.
That's a submerged tunnel.
Yes, I heard about that.
To be honest, nowadays, I love tunnelling, but I like jobs where I have a bit more than just tunnelling. For Sydney Metro, it was demo.
Yes.
We've done rail, we've done station tunnels. I always stay for the fit out concrete. I like a broad base of things to do. I like a challenge, I get bored very easy. And mate, if you're getting bored, there's no point being there.
Yeah.
You got to enjoy it. You got to like a challenge. And for me, I suppose in the future I'll be looking for what's going to challenge me. And see where we go.
Righto, mate. You talked about selling yourself. I'll give you a bit of time now. What do you want to sell about tunneling? What do you like? There'll be hopefully, people outside this industry listening in, and what could you say about tunneling? I'll give you a bit of time to.
Tunneling for me, I said it to a few of the guys on the job that I'm on at the moment, and I talk about it quite often. It's like a family. I've known you for years, Dallas. It's a small group of people, especially when I started in this country anyway, it probably wasn't more than 200 of us, I suppose. The number's greater now. But, we are like a family. We spend more time together than what we do with our families. So it's really important. Mateship's a big part. And it's an industry where if you do well, it'll look after you. On the job that I'm on at the moment at Sydney Metro, we had some return to work people, which are guys that, have had challenging pasts in their lives, and have come through this program. And I've got 3 of them that are still working for me at the moment, that did their 18 months apprenticeship in construction and were lucky enough to get on this job as a tunnel job. And I said to those guys, at the start, and it's great to see them still there. I said, at the end of the day, mate, you just won the lottery. You got the golden ticket in your hand. If you can hold on to that golden ticket, everything's sorted for the rest of your life. All you got to do is hold on to it. And part of that is to make sure that you're part of the team, get on with everybody, look after everybody, and treat them like a family member. Because it's those guys that are going to take you to the next job. Because if they don't like you, you don't get on with them, then you're not going to actually get to the next job. And that's the key.
Mate, it's been awesome, and like I said at the start, I appreciate your time. We could sit here for days. I know you and I could talk till the cows come home about tunneling. Thanks very much for your time, coming on, sharing your knowledge, and being part of this talk tunneling.
Dallas, I want to thank you, and I appreciate it. And mate, I really respect what you've done, with your life, definitely, and taking on what you've taken on. The industry, needs people like you to make it a safer place.
Thank you.
I have a question. When you were talking about England, London, and you said that you had to lift buildings that were quite old, how did you do that? How did you actually physically lift a building?
The tunnel goes through like that.
Yeah.
Have you been to England?
Yeah.
Been to London?
Yeah.
So, Big Ben's there, yeah? Westminster Bridge is here, alright? So, Big Ben was there, tunnels coming through here. The bottom TBM was 30 metres down. The other one was above it by 10 metres. So then we had shafts that came down here and one over here. And we drilled all these tubes that go out into the ground in these big fans, right? But they go out underneath the building in different areas. So if you imagine that's the building and all of these steel tubes with valves every 1 metre are underneath the building. So then what happened is how do I explain it? That's where the building is, and that's where those tubes are. And each one of those were numbered. So that was tube 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there was 50 valves on it, right? So what happened is, as the TBM came through, so if that was sitting there like that, I'll just put that there. TBM's coming like this, So, in the old days, you used to look in the paper and there was a weather map, and it goes like this. So the weather map, if it's 0, 0, 0.
Oh, yeah.
But then it would have a crinkle in it and it would go -10 on the weather map. Do you know what I mean?
Vaguely. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I think I've got it.
So like a ripple effect.
Ripple effect, yeah.
So TBM's coming this way, right? So as the TBM's coming this way, it's forcing against the ground. But as you're tunnelling, ground's always wanting to slope in towards the face. So it's going down like this. The ground's sinking.
Oh.
So as it's sinking, right, if you imagine that's there, this is the circles, like that. That point over there is still 0, because it hasn't moved.
Yeah.
That's 0, then that's 2, then that's 3, then that's 10. So the ground would move because we'd have all of these survey marks everywhere on the building. So start to move and it would mean that the building was starting to tilt. So as the TBM got to there. So when it got to there, the TBM would build a ring, it'd stop. We'd be there, and it's quite weird. Instantaneously, someone would call up because we would have done the numbers, and they'd say, on TAM number 2, pump 15 litres of grout in sleeve 7, 8, 9 and 10. You'd pump that up. You could literally, on our survey data, because we had these things called electro levels, which is, it's like this little round thing. It's got a piece of mercury in the middle of it. So what happens is whenever that rotates in any direction, there's a electrical charge that tells the computer that it's in negatives on this side and positives on this side. So it tells it exactly in which direction it's moving. So that would come back instantaneously. We'd pump that in, and then it'd take about 3 or 4 minutes, and we'd then see the ground come back up in whichever area. And so it'd come up a bit here, then we'd go, right, okay, pump another 30 litres in TAM 3 and here, here and here. We'd get it back to right, and then they'd start pushing for the next ring. Wow. And then we'd slowly, and then as it goes past, then those fingers at the back, then we'd watch it either settle a little bit more because they would have excavated it out, pumped the ground in behind, but there'd still be a little bit of relaxation, and then we'd pump it back up again.
And that's because they're doing the water Thames water now, aren't they? Is that?
Yeah, time.
Yeah. So will they be using the same method or something more, I suppose, more advanced now, isn't it?
Well, it depends on where it is because of, so for example, we're going under Big Ben. It's a massively, what's the word? Historical building. So you can't afford for that to move. That's on like.
Imagine you knock the timer out.
That's what I mean, like, you're
People in
building
the world are interested in that time, let alone.
How many photos of Big Ben have you taken?
It'd be like,
And now it's like
it'd be
that.
like the Tower of Pisa when you get that one on
Then
the
you
side.
go.
We used to, and it's a kind of a funny story. Right, so Big Ben's there, and then straight across the road there's a statue, there's a park, right? There's a square right there, it's a green bit, and the Abbey is over here, I think, and then the Chartered Accountants is here in South Dowling Street, or whatever it is. Anyway, we had a shaft right in the middle of this green square that's there, and then my office used to be just over here. And I used to love it because I was on permanent nights. I used to love it. We'd stand there, right, at the set of lights, and you'd be standing here, looking at Big Ben here, and cars would rock up at the lights. It'd be 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and you'd go, mate, you'd take your watch off and you go, you got the time? And they'd be looking at Big Ben, right? You got the time? And they go, yeah. And then you go, what, don't you trust Big Ben? They're like,
Well, let's talk tunnelling. Another episode down and out. So if you are interested in coming on, I'm going to be knocking out a few more of these and getting a lot more people like Brian on. But thanks for tuning in. This is Let's Talk Tunnelling, and we'll close it out there. Thank you.